The challenges facing our teens today mean that more than ever, we need to be there to support them and encourage them. The Dr. STEM Show is here to provide discussions about topics that will help promote healthy relationships, self-image, and success for teens, parents, and the community. Our young people can achieve more in life than they ever dreamed possible. The Dr. STEM Show, hosted by Dr. STEM Malatini, will foster these discussions and encourage your participation.
I recently completed a 10-week Citizens Academy with Peabody Police. And with me on the set today is Captain Richards, who led the training academy that we just completed. Welcome to the show, Captain.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, wow. You know, I've done this for 3 years, and all of a sudden I get so nervous starting the show. So I hope that, we'll be able to bridge the gap that, as you know, there's a lot that has happened this year as far as the citizens having faith in law enforcement.
Yes.
So what I wanted to do was hopefully during our discussions to be able to reinstill that faith in the community. So before we start, Captain, I know you sent me a very elaborate introduction of yourself, but I think you would do us justice if you introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, my name is Scott Richards. I'm a captain with the Peabody Police Department. I've been with Peabody for approximately 15 years, but I've been in law enforcement over 20 years. I started off with the Essex County Sheriff's Department, which is the jail up in Middleton,
yes,
as a corrections officer, and then I did a few years as a patrolman in the town of Groveland before I went to Peabody. Since I've been on the department in Peabody, I spent many, many years in CID, or the Criminal Investigations Division. Okay. I spent a great deal of that time both as a detective sergeant, and as a detective lieutenant in charge of the division. One of my responsibilities for many years was in the narcotics unit, including doing some undercover work and whatnot. And then I became eventually a watch commander of the patrol shift, and then I recently, about a year ago, got promoted to captain and assumed the duties that I have today. And that's what brings me here today.
Which are numerous duties that we know.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
There's a lot. But you know what, and before we start the discussions, I also want to say thank you to our Chief Thomas Griffin, who allowed us to have this conversation today, as well as our Mayor Betancourt, who was able to allow us to do the academy. Absolutely,
absolutely. It was something that years ago when I worked in the town of Groveland, we had done a couple citizens academies up there, and I found them to be very productive, and they were actually a wonderful experience for both the police officers that were doing the training, yes, and the people that attended the class. But since coming to Peabody, we hadn't done any. And about 6 months ago or so, I went to some training, and the Citizens Police Academy issue came back up at the training I was at. And I said, you know something, this is something, especially in today's day and age, yes, with what's going on today, yes, that may be a great way for the Peabody Police Department to do an outreach to the community and bring them into the station and kind of show them the inner workings of the Peabody Police Station and what we do and how we do it. I approached Chief Griffin about it. He was on board with it from the very beginning. He made a couple calls, called the mayor. The mayor was enthusiastic about it and said, make it happen. So we scheduled it. We got it together pretty quickly, and you actually attended the class, and we went forward. Yes, you were.
First attendance. But I should commend you, because it was really a great way of us to put the human side of law enforcement. We were able to interact with all the police officers that were there. They were able to laugh with us, because most of the time they stop you, and it's serious business about your safety.
Sure.
So we were able to see that human side of law enforcement when we were in the 10-week classes.
Well, that was intentional.
Yes.
Through my experience with the previous Citizens Academies in Groveland that I had done, and some other things, it's very businesslike, and the trainers or the instructors are very good at what they do, but they're very businesslike, and they boom, 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 do their thing. And in this particular academy, I wanted to make sure that the students in the class not just understood the technicalities of what we do and how we do it, but understood that police officers are also human beings.
Yes.
We're mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters. We have children that are in law enforcement, which I happen to have one. Yes. And there's a lot of dynamics that go along behind the scenes other than just wearing a uniform and being that police officer to stop and write you a ticket. Okay. And I wanted to make sure that came through, yeah, with some personal stories and also with some humor. We had to inject some humor into the academy too, because when you get people to laugh a little bit and to show a little humor, they coalesce a little bit, and the class became much better and moved forward. So that was intentional.
Getting to the human side, of Captain Richards. Let's go back, rewind. I work with a lot of teenagers. When you were a teenager, did you know that you wanted to be a police officer, and how did that?
I did.
about?
I did from early on, an early age. I grew up. I played sports when I was younger, and I played and grew up in Peabody. And I played sports with a bunch of kids whose fathers were police officers.
Okay.
So I saw them both at a professional level and as a dad level,
Yes.
and I always looked up to them. And I always felt that that's something I wanted to do. But life throws challenges at you, and when I get out of high school and whatnot, I met my now wife,
Yes.
and kind of things took a little bit of a different turn.
Yeah.
I wound up starting my own company, a construction company, and I started becoming fairly successful at that. So as I was progressing with that, my idea of becoming a police officer was sort of sidelined and tabled. But as time went on and my children got a little older, I said, if it's time to do it, now's the time. So I put my application in at the jail. I got accepted. I started working there as a CO or a corrections officer,
Yeah.
and then everything spun from there. So that's what led to my life in law enforcement. But I always wanted to do it. I just started it a little later than most.
Wow. So for the parents that are out there, and they have young children that are in high school right now, were you that captain in the classroom as well that was always the go-to person for the teacher that would end up being a captain now for your career? Or, did you have fun in high school? Because that's, they always wonder, you're not going to be amount to anything.
Well, to be honest with you, in high school, my high school years were wonderful.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people look back in their high school years and they don't like them. I had a wonderful time in high school.
Yeah.
For me, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. For me, high school was more of a social event than it was an academic event. Even though everybody kept telling me, you need to do your homework, you need to do your studies, and that's all true. And I learned that later on when I had my kids and my son went through high school and did the same thing. But I maintained decent grades, but it was more of a social atmosphere for me in high school. And I really, in high school, wasn't sure, other than the fact that I knew I wanted to go to college, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do after that. But it was a fun time for me in high school.
Wow. The pros and cons of being a law enforcement officer.
There's a lot of each. The pros are you get to work with the public, you get to help people.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I try to emphasize to people coming on the job today is that you're not coming on the job to hurt people or to write tickets and lock everybody up.
Yes.
We're here to help people. And in the course of doing that, certainly you do have to write tickets and you do have to arrest people. That's part of the game. But by and large, you're supposed to help people, and that's why we have a strong emphasis in Peabody on community policing, community outreach programs, building partnerships and relationships with the citizens of Peabody to try to make the city a safer place and to make the citizens of Peabody feel a part of that process. So that's one of the pros that and working with you folks in the academy was a lot of fun for me, and that's one of the pros. That's probably the biggest one. There are some cons too. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, being a police officer is very, very difficult. And sometimes even when you try to do the right thing and you try to communicate with people and you try to help people, you get that negative attitude back at you. And sometimes, unlike when I was a kid, today that the young, especially the youth, a lot of them don't have the respect for law enforcement people that they had when I was a kid. And that's one of the cons. You try to do a great job, and nobody's looking to get patted on the back all the time, but to hear that negativity coming at you for absolutely no reason is sometimes discouraging.
And that's the reason why we are having this show today, so that we can build some of that respect back into the community as well as our young people that are out there. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
As a youth motivational speaker, author, and coach, Dr. Stem understands that in a world where today's youth and parents are jaded and disappointed by institutions and people they perceive as out of touch with the reality of their lives, motivation is a dose that is much needed. It's time to excel. Dr. Stem Malatini is a refreshing change from the typical speaker. Dr. Stem understands the pressures, heartaches, temptations, hopes, and dreams of the generation that is just now coming of age. Students listen in transfixed silence as she speaks with the clarity and confidence of someone who has worked with teens, parents, and teachers for over 20 years. Her high-energy school assembly programs create a defining moment for schools and provide an experience students never forget. To reserve your seat in one of her coaching sessions, purchase her books, or to book her services, email her at drstemmolitini@gmail.com or go to her website at www.drstem.org.
As I told you the first day that I came in, my brother is actually a law enforcement officer in Alaska.
Yes.
So I see him going through all these now, so I hope and pray that he's going to be a captain too one day.
I'm sure if he perseveres and does the right thing, that'll happen
Yeah,
for him.
because then he's been going through the ranks, this way.
Sure, sure.
So you've been in law enforcement for 20 years,
Yes.
you said.
Yes.
And your daughter is also in law enforcement?
She is. She's 25 years old. I'm sorry, I gave that up. She's a police officer at a local university.
Yes, okay. And I know before we started, you were talking about another training that has started over at the academy?
Yes.
Right now?
Well, it's not part of the academy itself, but it's the Peabody Police Department is sponsoring it, and it's called the RAD class. And RAD stands for Rape, Aggression, Defense. Tactics and so forth.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful program and we have several police officers on the Peabody Police Department that are instructors, and it's a joy to actually host that class.
Wow, I missed that one online because that's where I was looking at to see all the classes, so I'll be in the next one. Let's go to the academy. Mm-hmm. When you put that together, because it was really, really well-rounded, we had a lot of classes that were really helpful. How did you decide which classes that would end up there? Because 10 weeks, we couldn't have learned everything, but it was very extensive.
It was, and what I tried to do was break the 10 weeks down into workable units of instruction, and there are so many facets to police work and so many things that we do in police work and the training that we receive, that what I tried to do was take some of the highlights or some of the important things and scale them down into manageable time frames that we could actually instruct to the citizens in the academy class that they would be able to comprehend and understand. We didn't want to complicate it too much, but we also wanted to cover a broad range of material. So 10 weeks and only 2 hours a night, and we didn't get out after 2 hours. The next class, we're going to go to 3 hours.
Yeah,
but
we needed more time.
We tried to give you as much information as we could that you would be able to absorb and understand, and I hope we were successful at that.
Yes, you were. You were. D.A. Blodgett, when he came in, I mean, of course, my heart is with the teenagers, and
Sure.
he spoke about the teenagers. So, we also want to say thank you to him, because then to have the DA coming into a class and actually taking 2 hours of his time was really, really something of significance to us.
Well, I would suggest to you, I've known District Attorney Blodgett for many, many years, and he happens to be a Peabody guy. He is fantastic to work with. He's an outstanding individual in his field. He runs the office, in my opinion, the right way, and he tries to do the right thing by everybody. And when this opportunity came up, I honestly expected an assistant district attorney to come and talk about the DA's office.
Yes.
But when he found out that we were putting on the academy and that we were having this class, he himself insisted on coming and doing the class himself, and we were greatly appreciative of that.
Yes, yes. And you know what? The one thing that I emphasize to all of you that are watching, if in your cities they also have a Citizens Academy, I urge you to enroll in them. Because what it did was it also gave us a picture of what happens when you make a phone call to the police and how some things, I remember Captain you saying, well, you know what, we just can't come in and break doors because you've told us that, there's a drug dealer next door. There are certain things that go into place before we can break a door.
Well, absolutely, and we have, and I always use this phrase, we have a rule book that we go by, and it's called the Constitution, and we follow that Constitution, and people have certain rights, and we can't violate those rights. So when somebody gives us a call and says, hey, the kid down the street or the guy down the street's dealing drugs out of his house, well, that may be true, but before we can actually act on that and do anything about it, we have to do an investigation, we have to build our probable cause, and it could involve search warrants and other things, but we have that rule book that we go by, and we have to play by that book.
You're right.
Bad guys don't, unfortunately, but we do.
Yeah, and the visit to Middleton Jail
Yes.
was a big one for a lot of people.
It was one of the the things that at the end of the class, when I asked people for their feedback,
Yeah.
they enjoyed, and I must say that I got very little negative anything about the class, and I'm not boasting,
Yeah.
but that was nice that I got mostly positive stuff and only a couple of small criticisms. But one of the things that stood out was the tour of the Middleton Jail.
Yes.
And having worked there before, it was kind of fun for me to go back because I hadn't been back there in years. But as you know, if you saw on the tour,
Yes.
I ran into some folks that I worked with many, many years ago, and I
That
had an
remembered
opportunity, kind of
you.
old home week. But it was a fantastic opportunity for the people in the class to see the corrections part of law enforcement and where the people go pre-trial and so forth, and how they're housed and how that whole thing works. And I thought that was great.
Bookings and everything. See,
Yep.
I worked at juvenile justice in Florida before,
Okay.
so I was, used to being in the control rooms
Sure,
and
sure.
everywhere. But everybody else was so surprised to
Oh,
see
sure.
that. But that was, really good. And the stops that we did that night.
Yes.
Because then we did the vehicle stops with the law enforcement coming in, and how nerve-wracking it is when you don't know who
Sure.
you're stopping.
Well, that's one of the most, other than domestic violence calls, which are probably the most dangerous calls to go on, motor vehicle stops are if they're not right there, they're a close second because of the unknown. And what we were trying to establish that evening for you folks is you're in a dark area, in a desolate area, and you pull over a car that you have no idea who's in that car.
Yeah.
That could spin any different way, and it's a very dangerous situation, and we just tried to demonstrate that to you folks so that you got a kind of an understood now when, even if you get pulled over during the day for a simple motor vehicle infraction and the officer walks up to the car and does certain things, that you understand that it's not out of ignorance, or it's not out of because he thinks you're a hardened criminal.
You're right.
It's because police officers have to use certain tactics to stay safe, because it only takes one time for somebody in a car stop to do something and to want to harm the police, and that's all it takes. So that's what we were trying to demonstrate that night.
The fun part was when somebody asked you and said, "Captain, now that we've taken this class, if you were the one to stop us, or if I get a ticket, would you let me go?" And your answer was, "No, if I have to write the ticket for you or rewrite it, I'll write it again." I thought that was funny because then, we thought, oh, okay, now that we graduates, so we can get away. You're like, nope.
Yeah, there's no get out of jail free card because you went to the class. And hopefully by being in the class, that you wouldn't commit the infraction that caused yourself to get pulled over and whatnot. I sort of was joking when I said that, but by the same token, we enforce the law evenly across the board, and if it's an infraction that deserves a ticket, even if you were in the class, you're going to get a ticket.
Oh no, and you know what?
I don't mean you yourself. I mean,
well, I mean me, especially with the cars. The plates that say my name on them.
yeah, it's not hard to figure out who you are.
It's not hard to figure out who I am. But, again, it was one of those times that we were able to laugh with you
Sure.
and be able to, see the human side, as
Sure,
I said,
sure.
when we were doing that. So that was really awesome. Let's talk about my week, the firearms week.
We can talk about that. Well, all I'm going to say about that is you went upstairs. We had a block of training in the firearms. Everybody got an opportunity to go upstairs with the firearms instructors at our police department to handle weapons and actually shoot some of the weapons off upstairs. And Dr. Stem participated in that. She wasn't up there very long. She came downstairs and she sort of had a kind of a horrified look on her face. And she said, "My arms are shaking, my legs are shaking." She said, "I could only take one shot and that was it." But come to find out, that one shot was a perfect right between the eyes shot on the target. So I said to myself, well, maybe one shot was all she needed.
And I was the only one that did it.
That's
so
true.
yeah.
That's true. So you did fantastic. It wasn't very expensive. We only used one round downrange, and it was a perfect shot, and you get out of there. So that was good.
Yeah, but you know what? It was really an experience that I also could feel for the law enforcement officers
Sure.
that have to shoot multiple times in order to protect themselves or to protect the citizens. That
Sure.
it takes a lot.
And and when a police officer does have to discharge his weapon, unfortunately, it's not in controlled conditions like up on the firing range. There's a lot of stress involved.
Yes.
There's other people around. You have to be aware of your surroundings so that you're not shooting, and if you're missing, you're going to hit something downrange. So there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. And we hope, and I know they did, the firearms instructors explained that very
Yes,
well
they did.
in depth so that folks would understand that.
Yes, they did. And thank you for the captain that was behind me, because I would have fallen because he took everything out of me. I was so nervous. Captain, it's really great talking to you. We're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back.
How much difficulty do you have getting your employees or your customers to listen to the solutions you can offer? This may be one of the great frustrations in business. It's time to excel. Dr. Stem now offers solutions with her Soft Skills Leadership Training Program and the Women's Executive Leadership Training Program. To reserve your seat in one of her coaching sessions, purchase her books, or to book her services, email her at drstemmalattini@gmail.com. or go to her website at www.drstem.org.
As I mentioned, we are having this show today so that we can bridge the gap and the faith in the law enforcement officers. As you know, especially this year, 2015, has been a very, very difficult year. So what I wanted to do was, as situations occurred, there were some law enforcement officers that, yes, we're ruled to be on the wrong side of the law, but then we do have a whole lot of them that are on the right side of the law that we're forgetting to look at that and to acknowledge the work that is being done in our community. So as I've been talking to Captain Richards, I hope all of you have found information that will help you to continue to entrust them and what they're trying to enforce in our communities. And talking about that, Captain, I know as recently as a couple of days ago, we had a shooting in California. Yes. And I've been asking you any information that you might want the citizens to be aware of as a safety precaution?
Well, I would just say this. Obviously we live in a different world today than we lived in many, many years ago. These mass shootings and these things that are taking place are happening far too often. The Boston Marathon bombing and all these other things, it's a different world that we live in. But what I would suggest is when people are out, please move about, and go about your business and be happy and feel safe. But if something should occur, something's out of the ordinary, something doesn't appear the way it should appear, don't hesitate to call the police department and report it so that we can go check it out. And if something does occur as far as a shooting or anything like that goes, obviously seek shelter, remove yourself from the situation as quickly as you can, and let the police handle what they need to handle. And I would also say that if you do have an encounter with the police for whatever reason, whether it's a car stop or if they come to your home for any reason, comply with the police and just do the right thing. If you think that they're in the wrong and something, there's a venue for that. That's the courtroom, other places to handle that. It's not a time to flee, resist, physically assault the police. It just escalates the problem and it makes it much worse. So just go about your business. We live in a great country. I don't want to politicize anything, and I don't want to get into talks about gun control and all these other things. But just in general, go about your business, and everybody should be fine. Yeah.
Captain, I just want to thank you because I am a citizen of Peabody, and I can't tell you enough how peaceful it is to live in Peabody because of the work that you do and all the officers that are there. So I love being a citizen there.
Well, I will say this, that we have, I truly believe that we have an outstanding police department in the city of Peabody. We have a lot of dedicated police officers on our department that go out every day and do the right thing. And for that, you see that in the city, and you find it, I would hope, a comfortable place to live and shop and eat and do things. We're going to continue that work, and Chief Griffin is certainly leading the ship in the right direction, and we'll continue to do that.
Yes, he is. And the cameraman, we got to mention him.
Oh, El Nino. Yes, we had... We have an individual that works for us, and if you ask me his name right now, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I have a sort of a funny name for him. He laughs. He thinks it's funny. So don't get. I don't want anybody getting upset that I call him El Nino. But I think his name is Benavides Cruz.
Yeah.
Sorry. Wonderful kid,
Yes.
and he came and took photographs. He videotaped some things, and he certainly went up to the firing range and took some great photos of people up on the firing range and on the motor vehicle stop night. And he does a great job for us.
Yes. And you know what? They have Facebook that Peabody Police have. So be sure to follow Facebook. I saw them on Twitter. So he's doing a great job putting everything out there. So follow the work on Twitter as well. And I'm sure every city, if you're watching from another city, you also have Facebook, Twitter of your law enforcement enforcement and websites. Every law enforcement now have websites where you can continue to see the work that is being done in your communities with the law enforcement. Is there anything else that I haven't covered that you might want the community to know about Peabody Police? Oh, I know what it is. There's a festival that happens in the summer that we do.
Yes.
That is huge.
Yes. We have, and I just wanted to talk about Peabody just briefly, if I could.
Okay, good.
There's a lot of things going on in the city of Peabody. Yes. We're building a brand new middle school in the city of Peabody. I think it's going to be one of the largest middle schools in the state. It's a wonderful facility that's right up the hill from the police station, actually, so I can see every day the progress of the school and what's going on up there, which is fantastic. We have the revitalization of the downtown going on. There's a lot of meetings about getting Peabody Square and revitalizing the square. Yes. They're actually going to reconfigure the square and move the monument and do some things coming up down there, which is going to help things out. Sure. They're in the middle of building the South Peabody Trail, which is going to be a wonderful walking trail down South Peabody all the way from behind the golf course down behind Browns Pond, and a lot of good things. There's a lot of good things happening in the city of Peabody, and it's a pleasure to work in the city of Peabody. And I'm very proud to be a resident and a lifelong member of the city of Peabody. Lastly, we are going to have another Citizens Academy, I believe, in the spring. We had such a wonderful response to this one that the chief would like to schedule another one for the spring, so the folks that couldn't make it into this one will be able to take them and a handful of others and kind of repeat the program. And I look forward to doing that.
And that's going to be on the website as well?
We'll post it on the website, we'll post it on Facebook, and we'll put it out in the newspaper, and it will be out in other medias as well. But it'll be publicized so that the folks that want to go will have an opportunity to apply for it.
Okay, so that festival.
Oh, the International Festival. I'm sorry. The International Festival is something that happens every year downtown in Peabody. Okay. It's been going on for, I think this year was the 30th anniversary, and I apologize in advance if that's wrong. I should know that, but there's been so many that, but it's a wonderful, wonderful event that we have every year, and it draws people not just from the city of Peabody. It draws people from all over for the different ethnic foods, the music, the entertainment, and it's a wonderful, wonderful event. And this year coming up in 2016, we're going to have the International Festival, but it's also the 100th anniversary of the city of Peabody. Oh. So we have several events scheduled throughout the year of 2016 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the city of Peabody, to include a major, major parade a couple weeks after the festival. That's going to be a wonderful, wonderful event, and that's going to be quite an undertaking.
I can imagine.
And also in 2017, since I'm on a roll here, we're going to have the senior PGA Golf Tour is coming in to have a tournament at the Salem Country Club in the summer of 2017. Okay. So we're already in the works trying to get prepared for that, and that's also another wonderful event that's coming. We did it back, I think, in 2001, and now it's coming back again.
So you say senior, is that for people over 40?
I didn't think I was a senior yet, but no, I believe it's over 50, but I'm not sure. I hope I haven't hit that category yet, but I'm close.
Captain, it has been an honor having you as a guest.
It's been my pleasure being here.
Thank you so much for everything. So I hope that your faith is renewed after having watched what the captain has said, and I'm looking forward to all the events that are going to be happening in Peabody next year. Thank you for watching the Dr. Stem Show.
Thank you for listening to the Dr. Stem Show. Have a terrific week.